So I'll call the meeting to order. Welcome to everyone to the Council and Committee meeting of the Town of Petawawa of October the 26th, 2020. Good evening to everyone. Nice snowy evening out there. First of the year. Interesting weather. Disclosure of pecuniary interest. Does anybody wish to disclose a pecuniary interest in any of the matters before us this evening? Having seen none except for myself, I'll declare pecuniary interest on the presentation on item number 1. With that, I'll hand it over to the Deputy Mayor. Deputy Mayor Service, can you take over the meeting at this point?
Thank you, Mayor Sweet. So we'll go ahead now with our first presentation, the Petawawa Net Zero Project Update from Aqua and Energia. And I guess, Dave, will you be introducing Indra?
Yes, so this project is the biosolids and energy recovery project that we've been ongoing for probably a year now. And so Indra and Energia have been at the table and presented various stages of the project. And so here is Aqua and Energia to present at the latest stage. And then we'll be getting an additional update in the full business case in January of 2021. So I'll just hand it over to Indra at this time.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Your Worship. Through Your Worship, thank you to all the councillors for inviting us to provide the update. I'm hoping everybody can hear me loud and clear. So today's meeting is primarily the objective is to provide ongoing updates on the project itself, and we have a small request to allow us to start the public consultation as a part of this project. So I'll go through a few slides, and we'll spend some time on the public consultation process that is being proposed. So the outline is we're going to talk about a little bit about the project scenarios that we have developed, tentative schedules, the engagement we have carried out or completed till today, the partnership, just to refresh the memory, and few slides on public consultation. So as you know, the town currently owns a sewage treatment plant with environmental permits that has a design flow and a peak flow defined in the permits. Currently, you have 4 digesters and a biosolids that is being land applied. Recently, the plant has going some upgrades around mechanical bar screen headworks, PLC. Those all projects will be complementary to our project, and the current biosolids are being hauled to agricultural land application. So the history of this project, as you know, started with the TSSA order to bring the digesters back into operation and then to meet those requirements. So Dave and we explored those back in 2018, and there was then Stantec was engaged by the town, and based on Stantec different reports, the cost presented around 2018 was about $750,000. And when we got involved, we basically said, from that investment, let's look at some other avenues where we can utilize the full capacity, treatment capacity, and leverage the existing asset in the plant to look at opportunities of biogas utilization by bringing in food organics into the wastewater treatment plant. So the scenario 1 today, if the town decides not to do anything, you are looking around somewhere around 750. Now, please note that this cost was provided in 2018, so there will be some increase in this cost if we go and revisit this cost. That is our scenario 1, which we started a baseline. The new scenario we came down to council and presented last year was, we will still perform all the recommendation that was made in the TSSA order. So we'll fix those generators 3 and 4. The digesters will come and meet the requirements as mentioned in the TSSA order, but we also will have new additional components installed in the plant that will allow us to bring in about 6,000 tons up to 15,000 tons of pre-processed slurry. Now, I'm highlighting that term because please do not get confused with the raw food waste. We are not bringing raw food waste into our plant. We are bringing in pre-processed slurry from outside of the plant, and we'll have a liquid storage tank in the plant that will hold this amount of slurry. Then that slurry will be pre-treated and put into digesters where it will be commingled with the existing wastewater. And then that whole function will produce and enhance the biogas production, which we plan to convert a portion of the biogas into electricity, combined heat and power generator of about 200 kilowatts. That is going to totally compensate the electricity need in the plant as of today, plus additional requirement that will be due to the equipment. And now, so on that CHP unit, our hands are a little bit tied because we applied to the funding through the federal government, which the council is aware of, and we were successful in getting $2.7 million in grant. So when we applied to that funding, the production of electricity was one of the key requirements. Now, the project team also estimates that we will have surplus biogas than we can use to produce electricity. So in that aspect, what we are looking in the project is that we'll use the biogas, a portion of the biogas to produce electricity and a heat required in the plant. Then we will find other opportunities to use the biogas, such as renewable natural gas. Now, considering the volume of the biogas we have estimated to be generated in the plant, we are not seeing a good case to convert it into renewable natural gas and directly inject into the pipeline. Because if we do that model, then we require a compressor and upgrading and other equipment that comes at some additional amount of cost compared to the biogas we have remaining. So what we have been looking is we have been working with Enbridge Gas to look at other options such as compressing and storing the biogas to certain volume, and then there will be a transportation company contracted by Enbridge that is going to come and take that gas to a central processing unit, making us more feasible project. So that is the whole update at this point on this project. So basically, as you heard what I said, we're going to start with 6,000 tons of organics to start with. We're going to fine tune all the process, prove that the technology works, and bring the operations team into this new normal, comfortable with new normal around the processes and everything. And then the project will have a capacity of handling additional additional SSO as we move down the road. So that's why we have divided these projects into two phases, as you can see. So phase A, we'll produce electricity, we'll have some gas, extra gas, we'll find the uses of that. And then the phase 2 will have so phase 2, we intend to have a little bit more organics than 6,000. So that will require a dewatering technology and a nutrient side stream treatment, and basically bump up the biogas production, generating more revenue. So we have divided this into two phases. However, from the project perspective, both phases will be considered as one project. So when we present the cost, it will be one cost rather than divided into two. And then the whole business case will be based on that total cost. Only the time span is being a little bit delayed due to the project timeline, and also to finish the funding application scope within the phase 1. So we wrap that funding application requirement that will give us a little bit freedom to do other beneficial uses on that biogas, remaining biogas, and after the funding application phase is completed. So this is just the layout. As you can see, we'll have a feedstock receiving area here with the liquid storage tank. We'll bring 2 digesters back into operation in alignment with TSSA requirement, and then we'll have 2 digester holding tanks. So the trucks will come, they will have a weighting scale to measure the volume of the trucks that's bringing in, and it will offload the liquid slurry in the tank, and then there will be some piping and other connections that will feed the slurry into the digester tank. So the CHP, the generator will be located here, and that is nearby the control panel building, giving us flexibility for the electricity interconnection. And we are still exploring where to locate the gas storage tanks for the future. We are working with Enbridge on that aspect. Just to give you a little bit more clarity, the phase 1 and phase 2. So the phase 1, we are looking, as I said, upgrade to the digesters, and that will enable bringing in organics into the plant, finish the installation of the generator that will offset the entire electricity demand for the plant, and also we'll have some spare biogas. So that is phase 1. And then the way we define phase 1, as I said, is that based on the funding application we applied. So that will close, and that will give us town a little bit flexibility around not tied to the funding application schedules and other criterias. Then the phase 2 will basically be additional equipments to manage the biosolids, so that we'll have a flexibility to move away from land application, because we expect the biosolids volume to increase because of the additional organics. And we also plan to have additional treatment to manage the side stream and ammonia levels. Then as a part of the phase 2, we'll work and we'll have offtake agreements and other arrangements in place to ensure the additional revenue from this excess biogas. So the way the phase 1 and phase 2 is designed, as I said, just to clarify here one more to the council, is we are trying to ensure that if the project goes a little bit further than the timeline that we have mentioned in low carbon economy fund grant application, we are in no risk to compromise with the grant eligibility. That's where we are headed. So as you can see, the project technology-wise, we have divided this into 4 areas, basically incoming organics. And right now, we're already having residential wastewater and industrial wastewater. The new feed that's going to come into the plant is organics waste. We'll have some sludge pre-thickening, and then the organic waste, as you can see, doesn't go through the pre-treatment process in the wastewater, but directly goes into the anaerobic digester that we will fix, and it will produce the biogas, which will be used, treated, and then used to the combined heat and power unit to produce the electricity, and then the excess biogas will be used to find other beneficial uses. Then other byproduct will also be digested, so that digested will be upgraded to a valuable commodity using a dewatering techniques. And then the last output that's going to come out is a liquid that we will plan in phase 1. The liquid will go back to the headworks for the treatment. In the phase 2, when we bring in additional organics, it will be a significant volume, which will require a treatment on its own. So those are the 2 activity that will be a part of phase 2 to manage these 2 commodities or resources. So tentative schedule, you guys have already seen this. Because of the grant applications, our schedules are to somewhat tied. Some of the activities, there's a stricter deadline around that. So we intend to complete the entire project by April 2022, both phase 1 and phase 2. Phase 1 by April 22, commissioning, ramp up, performance testing. And once everybody, the entire project team, the operations, the town sees that it's working, then we will proceed with the other 2 parts of the project, which is phase 2, which includes more around digested management, converting biosolids into a more valuable material, and then the side stream treatment that will be a part of phase 2. Now, the stakeholder engagement the town has completed as of today is, as you can see, we have communicated with surrounding municipalities and the county level. Everybody has been very positive. We have entered into a further discussion with Pembroke around how we can use this facility to leverage and receive their organics down the road. Organic supplier, we have made some good progress in this aspect. As I have said, in the phase 1, our aim is to make the project work without any hassles. So what we are trying to put in place is a guaranteed supply of organics, both in terms of quality and quantity. So that's why for the first phase, we will be proceeding with the contract with one of these or multiple contracts with these three entities: Walkers, Tomlinson, and Cornerstone. We already have signed letter from Walkers. So, but we are trying to confirm and put some volumes around these so that when we convert that agreements into a legally binding, it will be some sort of supply contract to the partners. MACP, we have already engaged innovation brands from last year, and recently around summer we also connected with environmental approvals brands. And I heard from this council, through my continuous interaction and through Dave, that environmental approvals has been identified as one of the unknowns. So we tried to address that risks and mitigate that risk by having a pre-consultation meeting with them June of this year, and got a lot of conversation going on. And as a part of that, so this project will require renewable energy application because of the electricity generation and a small component of environmental approvals. So it will be predominated by REA process. And as a part of the REA process, we would be required to do a public consultation, which I will cover in later slides. Now, in terms of the offtake agreement, the other big aspect of this project, equivalent to organic supply, is offtake. If we couldn't find the agreements that we can make a sale of either electricity or a gas, then that would be an issue for the project. There's no business case for the project. So from that angle, we have started talking with Hydro One and Enbridge starting early 2019. But as you know, we didn't have enough information back in those days. So now with Hydro One, we have gone through different phases of assessment, and it has been confirmed that they have the capacity to provide an offtake agreement for us. So the offtake agreement will be in the model of net metering. So what does that mean is we will have a first say on using the electricity we produce. So typically the wastewater plant will use the maximum electricity it needs. So that's why, as I described you earlier, the whole model we are trying to look is we're going to produce a biogas, and we'll generate as much as we need for our plant, and then try to find other uses of the biogas so that we don't exceed the net metering contract with the Hydro One. So we have stopped at that stage, and after the 30% design engineering, we'll have more information that will kickstart the next step of the process and convert it into a formal offtake agreement. So at this point, we cannot start that process due to this stage not being completed. Similar with Enbridge, we have been working with them about that other option of storing and trucking the volume of the gas. So since this is a new kind of arrangement which started middle summer of this year, we are working with them to put something in the paper that will give us more clarity. And I'm very hopeful that by January meeting, we'll have something in the paper to come back and report to the council. The other aspects on the stakeholder engagement, as the council has directed, and we have seen the opportunity, is dealing with OVWRC and the Canadian Armed Forces. So as you know, we have been talking with Canadian Armed Forces. They have some volume, not a lot of volume, but we are working with the team over there to align what they are doing versus how we can find a home for their kitchen organics. So that is ongoing. There has been some personal changes in the armed forces, and we are up to date with what's going on there, and we will continue working with them. Now, in terms of OVWRC, the challenge, as I said, is the materials coming into the OVWRC doesn't have a lot of organics that we can get a lot of value from. So for the phase one, our plan, as I said, is we want to make the project successful. So for the phase one, we'll mostly rely on these private haulers to give us a good quality organics and a steady stream of volume. But having said that, our plan is also to ensure and recommend the OVWRC with the necessary activities that they should take in order to make an alignment for what the material we need, quality of the material. So our team, including me, we will be visiting OVWRC November 16th in next 2 weeks, and we will be doing some sampling and the study of the waste stream they are getting from, for example, Petawawa itself, Pembroke, Lawrenson Valley, and then we would be able to, once we know what kind of waste streams, what leaf and yard and other organics coming in, then we will be in a better position to recommend to OVWRC is this is the way you can process it compared to what you are doing today. And if you do these steps, then we would be able to take your organics. So we have been working with Sue, the general manager in OVWRC, and it is a very exciting conversation in both ends. So we are hopeful that by the time phase 2 happens, we would be able to integrate the OVWRC materials into our project. So, I know through Dave, there has been some interest about understanding the risks of this project. So I tried to capture that in this slide, and I'm happy to answer offline, and the Q&A session. So technology risks, there's a technology risks with the new technology. Now, having said that, this technology which Energia has, we will be using Energia technology is not new per se, but it's definitely new in terms of Ontario. They have a number of facilities that have shown working. Most of you will join us tomorrow for the council tour for the Dufferin Organics, and you will see there too. So it's a similar technology, but smaller size footprint. So we'll be using it. And also from the technology perspective, there's 2 major risks, which when I say risks, we are not saying that it cannot be mitigated. We're just identifying it as a risk so that the council understand. One is a pre-processing technology suitability. So as you know, when we bring in the organics, there's a variety of organics and the contamination that comes with organics, right? So that's why, as you have heard me repeatedly saying that in phase 1, when the facility is new, when the equipments are new, we would like to get the good source of organics and a volume, and that's why we are looking for private haulers. And that's what we are working with the OVWRC to ensure that we get at least good permissible range of organics. Now, to be very upfront and transparent with you, they're never going to be a good organics. There's always going to be a contamination, right? So the equipments can handle certain range of contamination, but it would create a technical hassles and a maintenance issue if the contamination exceeds that level. And that's what we are trying to do, is get everybody used to with the new technology, new processes, and understand. And then we will slowly introduce, the materials from OVWRC or Pembroke or Garrison and so forth. So that's what we are aiming. And when I said we'll start with 6,000, which is about a truck a day. If you are thinking about a truck, it's 1 truck a day. And then once everybody gets comfortable, the equipment started working for 100 hours and 100, 200 hours, then we'll slowly start opening the door for other kind of material. Similarly, the other risk is the loading. As you started taking in more organics, as I showed you in the diagram before, the digested volume and then the liquid stream volume will go up. And that brings in the extra loading risks, which is typically ammonia. So the plant has some constraint around how much additional ammonia it can handle today. And I know our operation team is doing some project to get better handle about that level of data. So that's why phase 1, we don't have any risks, because whatever we're going to produce with the 6,000 ton, that can be accommodated by the plant as of today. When we increase this volume, then there will be additional ammonia, which requires a separate attention and treatment. And that's why phase 2 is developed. So it can be managed. We just need to do it slowly. And that's why it was divided into phase 1 and phase 2. Now, other big risks, as we all know, from the public perception rather than a technical perception is traffic and odor. Now, increased traffic, we understand, is always a concern, especially where the plant is situated. But as I said, we are talking about 1 truck a day, and the truck will be fully enclosed stainless steel kind of trailer. And we are not bringing in raw organics. The key difference, as you can understand, with the odor is the state of the organics, right? So since we are not bringing in raw, it will be a liquid, and then it will be stored as for the processing, not more than 1 or 2 days as a buffer in the plant itself, in a liquid, fully enclosed structure with proper odor control techniques. So there is a very less chance of odor increase or odor risks. And traffic, I know that as a part of the public consultation, we'll do that awareness among the public about potential impacts of the traffic increase. Now, the other increase will also be a digestate going out. So one truck coming in, and then another, the same truck will go back. So people will see 2 trucks, even though it's coming 1 truck. So that's optics we have to educate people. And again, we will have all the emergency plans in place as required by the ministry for any emergency situation, if and so it happens. But most of the projects we have seen has never occurred this situation. And as you understand, the operations plays a key role in not ensuring that these accidents doesn't happen. And we are fully committed to make sure with the emergency plans and with the technical trainings. So approvals is another risk we have identified. As I briefed before, we are working on that. And with the offtake agreement, there's a risk with the offtake agreement. So that's why the primary focus for us is to use this energy in the plant itself. So we create our own demand to the certain extent, and then only look for additional supply contracts for additional commodities. So we mitigate that in that sense. When we get an offtake agreement, our aim is to get a longer term contracts. And as we have seen in different projects, there's a lot of market players that are interested in procuring these valuable commodities. Financial risk is always there. The assumptions built into the financial model, the cost escalation of the project estimates, the escalation of the operations and maintenance costs. So when we come up in January, I think Dave has instructed that Watson will be available to review this financial model when we have ready before we come to January meeting. So that's another layer we're going to add. And also, when Aqua takes this whole project to approve for investment to our board, we will also have to do the financial due diligence, and Energia will do their own and town will do their own. So it's not just one entity doing so, there will be 3 entities doing it. So that adds more certainty to those assumptions built into the financial model. Now, in terms of numbers, I know, Gary, you have asked some questions about financials. At this point, we are working around the number of $7 million and some contingency around that, which is also a number similar to one we have submitted to a low carbon economy fund. And out of $7 million, we already have secured 2.7 in grant. So that's a 40% of that $7 million. And based on our non-binding MOU, Memorandum of Understanding between 3 parties, Aqua has committed to invest up to $1 million as of now, and Energia has given us a letter with their interest on investing from $2 to $4 million. So that leaves town to put about $1 million in this project. Now, as you can see, initially I talked about $750,000 that the town will be required to invest if you don't do anything this project. You will still have to do those digesters as per the TSSA order. So we're just trying to stay a little bit north of that requirement. And if you revisit that work today, pretty much north of $1 million, trying to ensure that town doesn't have to spend more than the scenario 1 is, let's not do this project scenario.
Sorry, Indra.
The return on investment, yep.
Could you repeat about the last minute of what you said? It was breaking up. I'm not sure if it's just me, but I couldn't understand about the last minute or so.
Sure, Gary. So can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. So the last one I was talking is we are trying to stick with the notion that the $750,000, which was the price tag that the town is required to spend to maintain the digesters or to upgrade the digesters to meet the TSA's requirement. So we are working around that number, and we are trying our best for town to stay just north of $1 million, because if we go to the market today and get the new quotes around that job, it will be somewhere around north of $1 million. So we are trying to make sure that town sticks with that number so that there's not an additional incremental cost burden on the town. Does that make sense?
Yeah, loud and clear. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. So, and then on the operation, there's also operational risks. As you know, this is a new process, so the operator has to learn and be trained. So we have done in other project, we have ensured, and tomorrow the Energia team will explain you when we take the tour of that plant too, is how do we make sure that there's a minimal operational risks, primarily by training the employer, having all the operations manager standard process, and also having a maintenance and other contracts with the technology provider. And obviously the biggest thing is there will be the contracts will be built around performance of the technology itself, so that what if the technology doesn't work? Who's going to pay for it? Who's going to fix it, right? So those all will be built in the contract when we reach that contract stage in terms of design, build, operate, maintain contract. I think I'm going back. So I'm not going to spend too much time here. As you can see, this is a stakeholder we have engaged. Town, Energia, and Aqua are being a key entity here. And by the January meeting, we'll present you with some of the options on delivery of this project. Now, this is the new component compared to the past one. So as I said, under the renewable energy approval process, the town is required to do a consultation process. And as a part of this consultation process, the two items we need to do is public meetings. There's two meetings. One is required basically a 30-day notice, and the second one requires a 90 days notice. Now, we have already submitted the draft plan to the MECP just for their green light, and we got that green light, and that's why we are here today to present to you guys. So we have already completed this activity, and we are currently doing these all reports. Energia is working with Town and Aqua to provide all the information and prepare some of these reports. Dave and we have been working on some of these natural heritage assessment and cultural heritage assessment report. And then we already have prepared the project description report and gave it to MECP. We are working on other reports, which will be available as a part of 30% too. And then we would be, once we completed both public meetings, then we would be in a position to submit the application. Now, this process is a little bit different than the environmental approval process. As you know, in environmental process approvals, you first submit the applications with the necessary technical informations, and then you go through the public process. But in REA process, it's the other way around. So they require us to do everything, all the documents required, and public consultation, including Aboriginal consultation done. And then only once all the boxes are checked, then we would be able to submit the formal application. So in the Aboriginal consultation side, the ministry has given us 6 or 7 list of Aboriginal communities that we need to contact. We have already sent the project description to some of those, and we have already heard some responses from few of those. Now, the ask for today's meeting is to give us approval to proceed with those 2 meetings. As you have anticipated, due to the COVID and pandemic, we have got a green light from the ministry to convert the first public meeting into a virtual. So we have put some dates here about 26 November, just as a dates, but these are the other dates that we were thinking by latest we can push it to January, or sometime before the holidays. Because it's being virtual, it will be more around information sharing option rather than a full back and forth engagement. So for that, what Dave and we have discussed is, that we'll have all the documents created like a PDFs or infographics about the project, and the town will have a link in the website, town's website. Then the link will take to that separate landing page in the town of Petawawa's website, which will host all these technical information and other public information related to the project before the public town hall meeting, the virtual town hall meeting. So that's what we are discussing, and we are aiming that we will do it before end of January 2021. Now the second one, and this is the one that needs 30-day notice. So Dave and I discussed, and Energia, we discussed about putting those notices in the local newspaper with some information. We can also use social media, Facebooks and Twitter to disseminate these information and link to the website so that whoever is interested can go to the website for the detailed information. Now the second meeting is planned around March, April of 2021, and that is the meeting that requires 90 days notice. And so we plan to, that's why we have aligned that by the end of January, we'll come up to the council and we will present the full business case. And based on the town's direction, then we'll proceed with the second meeting, public meeting, which will most probably be in person. But again, depending on the COVID and how the COVID gonna play out, we can determine that at the end of the near to the deadline. But ministry is open for whether it's a virtual or face-to-face meeting. So yeah, at the end, the request for today's meeting with the council through your worship is to allow us to proceed with the public consultation plan. As I said, it involves creating that web page, putting some information in there, and we have come up with some processes that all the information before it is being posted will be reviewed by related personals in the town. And you know, Dave can elaborate that process a little bit internally for the town, and then it will be posted in the website. Those websites and the links will be shared with the public through social media, and the public engagement notification will also be put out in a local newspaper. The second approval we would like to seek from the council is approved to continuously engage with the ministry and submit some of those reports to the ministry prior to formal applications. Also sign some non-binding MOUs with organic suppliers and other project partners. Right now, we are asking for a letter from those organic suppliers saying, can you provide us the organics? And they are sending us a letter saying yay or nay. What we want to put is some sort of like agreements, which is non-binding, obviously, because we haven't got a full go-ahead on the project from the council yet, but we want to put something in the place so that we can come to the council in January and report accordingly. And then, due to COVID and some delays around the project, the schedule that we have submitted to the Low Carbon Economy Fund has been delayed by about 6 months, which is a new date of April 2022. We would like to revise that schedule on behalf of the town, and submit it to the Low Carbon Economy Fund with our next report going at the end of this month. I would be happy to answer any questions. And I know we have Ashwani from Energia, and he's managing director for the Energia company, and Jane, who is helping us manage the project from Aqua's side to support with the question and answer session.
Okay, thank you very much, Indra. That was a lot of information in a short period of time, but we'll give council a chance to ask you any questions that they may have. Unfortunately, right now, I can't see anybody, so I don't know if anybody has their hand up.
Okay, I'll stop sharing, and I think that's it. Councillor Murray is raising the hand, Deputy Mayor.
Okay. Mary, go ahead with your question.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Thank you, Indra, and your team for a great presentation. Very informative. Lots there to digest. Hey, just a question. Organic suppliers, Walkers, Thompson, Cornerstone, Miller, what's in it for them? I know you have an MOU, organic supply agreement with them. What's in it for them as they're taken? What does that cost the town, or how does that work? What keeps the interest for those people?
Thank you, Councillor Murray. That's a good question. So the whole thing is, I think, right. If you look at today where they are sending their organics, right? So the transportation between the collection point and their receiving station, and what we have known is that if there's additional, if you can find a home near to your collection points, that they would save a lot of money, first of all, on a hauling. Second is the time to haul, which is a big, right? Because they don't have an unlimited number of containers or the trucks. So, if instead of going 2-hour drive, if you can do that job in 1 hour, they can pick up more loads so that they can collect more volume. So basically for them, it's a cost savings. And also, if we can define our tipping fee in a competitive way compared to what they are paying to offload those organics in where they are doing, that will be another savings for them. But for a tipping fee is also a revenue for us too.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Councillor Sabering has a question. You'll have to unmute.
Got it. Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Indra, thank you for your presentation. It's a very exciting opportunity for the town. And I just wanted to make a comment with respect to your plan for public engagement. I like the idea of pushing it into January. It allows for people to sort of plan because this will be a big deal if we decide to go forward with the town, not only from understanding the process and whatnot, but certainly it would be a budget issue. And of course, our taxpayers, we as the taxpayers fund that. So I thank you very much for that. I at first saw the November and I thought, ooh, might be a little bit too soon, but thank you very much. Thank you.
And just to add on that, Councillor Sabron, is going ahead with the public engagement is not a commitment to move ahead with the project, as I said. So we have 2 sessions, and when we come back in January, if the town decides to not continue, we can stop, the engagement at that point of the time. Now, in terms of the funding, I forgot to say one thing is we are still exploring additional funding. As you have noticed that the federal landscape have changed around these projects in our favor technically. Recently, the government announced additional funding and money available for clean fuel projects and similar projects. So we are exploring if we can get additional funding to cover or mitigate some of our financial contributions too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sabering. We have Councillor Carmody, then Councillor Mones, then Councillor McLean.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Going back to the funding, just a question about we've got 2.7 secured, and if the town were to contribute $1 million, so that gap, the other funding in the middle there, sounded like it was identified but not secured, and I was just curious what is the risk surrounding that money? How secure is it? Is it maybe 50-50, or may happen, may not happen? What do we have any kind of feeling for that?
So to match up the balance of $7 million, Councillor Carmody, 2.7 is secured. The contract is already in place, and we are already spending some of that money for the 30% design. Now, the balance, as I said, the commitment was that the town is going to put in $1 million. Again, it's not legally binding. That's a commitment we mentioned in the funding application, and Aqua will match that contribution with our investment, and then Energia will fill in the rest of the dollars to come up to $7 million. Now, the additional funding we have been exploring is funding is with independent electricity system operator for the funding that's available for the cogen unit. We are estimating somewhere around $300,000 to $500,000 for that opportunity. So we have been pushing that documents. Again, it's a chicken and egg. We need certain information, technical information, to put in the funding application to start with, and that's what we are generating those information as we progress in this design stage. The other funding exploration we have done is, as you are aware, the feasibility study we completed last year was funded by FCM. So that's another option that is available. But we didn't pursue that in honesty, that because the direction I got from the last July council meeting is the town doesn't want to have loan, taking loan from any of these funders. So as you are aware, FCM provides money that is 85% loan and a 15% grant. So we haven't proceed with that option. But if there's interest, we can actually go with that option, and the town can basically use the FCM loan to compensate your part of the contribution. And then we are also waiting for some new programs that we heard will be announced, sometime early next year for these kinds of projects from the federal government. But having said that, if we need, if the town is open to take, private capital, there's a multiple players in addition to Energia, but Energia has committed to a certain range of investment, and I believe within that range of investment, we would not be required to go and seek any other private capital at this point.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Carmody. Just on that note, Indra, in terms of Aqua contributing $1 million and Energia possibly contributing $2 million, obviously they're going to want something in return for their investment. So what are they after in terms of them investing in our project, and how does that affect our ability to get our return on investment?
Yeah. So as a part of this whole project delivery model, Deputy Mayor Gary, is we will have a revenue sharing agreement, right? So, and then the revenue sharing will be defined in a way to reflect the investment done by each parties, obviously. So in answering to what is the motive, what is Energia looking for, I can answer that they are trying to showcase the technology they have in the context of a smaller municipality, that it can be done. And maybe Ashwani, if you are listening to us, can you jump in quickly to answer Deputy Mayor Service question around what's in there for Energia?
Hi, thank you, Indra. Ashwani Kumar here from Energia. For us, Indra, I think you said it right. We are a Canadian company with global footprints. We have done these projects across the globe. We are Ontario-based, and we don't have a reference in Ontario where we are co-digesting with biosolids. We have similar references in California. We have references in New Jersey across the pond. And obviously, we look at this as a showcase opportunity, and we have a head office here. So it's in our backyard. We are very eager and excited about this opportunity. We are also very eager about making smaller communities self-resilient in terms of power generation and converting wastewater treatment plants into revenue sources. This has been our model, which we have used in US, couple of towns and cities, and we are trying to bring it in Ontario and showcase that. That's our motivation number one. Obviously, it's investment, and it has its own mechanism to be invested in. We do look for some return on investment, and one of the ways we are looking at is invest in this project, make sure that the project makes profit and revenue, and we agree on how we get our equity or how we get our investment back in 10 years or 15 years period without hurting the bottom line, which is basically resilient power generation, making sure wastewater gets power, saves greenhouse gases, and at the same time have opportunity to expand and bring in more organics and convert it into renewable natural gas. So that's where we are from Energia point of view.
Yeah. So, I mean, we are not trying to hide that all the parties, including town, who will be investing in this project is not looking for a return, right? That's obviously not true. Everybody is looking for a return based on their investment. But I think, as Ashwani said, we're also trying to move the plant from just spending money to treat the wastewater, which is a primary function, to basically, can we compensate and offset some of those costs so that the sole burden of operating the plant doesn't reside with the taxpayers only.
Okay, thank you, Indra. We'll go to Councillor Moans.
Indra, I got two questions. The first one was just a follow-up on Councillor Carmody's cost. I understand it correctly. The town is on the hook for $750,000 to $800,000 no matter what in order to bring the digesters up to meet the TSSA. So that is also part of the $1 million that you were talking about. That would be our share. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct. Again, I mean, what I was trying to say is that it's difficult to say in the exactly literally that way, but yes, if the town doesn't do this project, you will still have to do those upgrades and maintenance on the digester, which was costed around $750,000 back in 2018, Councillor Mons. So yeah, that will be basically, those activities will be a part of this overall project, and the town is expected to invest $1 million on this project. So I think we can say yes, that is a safe assumption.
Thank you. My second question would be, how confident are you that this technology is going to work in this part of the country during our winter months? Do you think that's going to be able to function at a good rate?
So yeah, since Ashwani is here, I think I will let him speak. But just to add before he speaks is, yeah, we are confident that the technology works. We have seen reference projects working in a colder climate, Councillor Mons. But Ashwani, if you want to elaborate a little bit more on that, please.
Yes, thank you. The technology is not new. The technology is utilizing existing assets which are running at a slower speed biologically to speed it up by thickening upfront. We are not changing the core technology as such. All we are doing is we are putting equipment to facilitate the better use of the fundamentals which are already in place in the digesters. There's a lot of towns and cities which are running anaerobic digesters here in Ontario, and we are just running another digester. So climate has very little impact on this technology, not only because we do make up for the heat. Say, for example, the biogas which is produced goes to a combined heat and power unit, which generates electricity and also a lot of extra heat. So we are designing the system such that extra heat is put back in the digesters. And at any given time in the coldest weather also, the digesters do not run cold, and they always have external heat exchanger. And the heat is coming from, it's a waste heat, which is coming from the combined heat and power unit. With all these inputs and arrangements, the technology works, and it's kind of fairly proven. In other colder climate conditions, even in Germany, Italy, in parts of Canada, further north of Canada in Quebec. So this technology is functioning, and it's kind of proven at this moment. Very little impact of climate on this technology.
And as I said, the concept of mixing food waste with the wastewater, there's already a 78 treatment plant that is doing in a much larger scale than what we are talking today down in the United States and Europe. So as Ashwani mentioned, we are not fundamentally changing your size of your tank, the digester tank. What we are doing is basically we're putting in some small processes in those tanks so that we can free up the treatment capacity, which is, right now, and correct me, Ashwani, if I'm wrong, right now, I think the liquid goes in there and sits for X number of days. So we're with this new innovative processes, we're trying to reduce that number of days so that we can push more volume through the same, tanks. And so I think the biggest risk, as we have said, is in the pre-processing side. What if you get really worst quality organics, right? Then it's going to clog off your entire, pre-processing system. So there's some protection to avoid that. Firstly, as I said, having a good organics supplier that we will also have a quality control program to check QA/QC those quality of organics to make sure that these organics coming in our plant meets within that range of contamination, and there will be other technology to prevent that before going to the digester and clog the digesters. So that is the key portion of the project where we need to focus in order to make everything in the back end works.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mons.
So if I could, Indra, just on that topic about the quality of organics. So you've mentioned there's good organics, and bad ones will have a negative effect, but I'm guessing the quality of the organics will help also determine how much biogas is produced. So how confident are you that these suppliers will supply us with good enough quality organic that we're going to make enough gas to produce enough power to take care of our wastewater plant?
Yeah, that's a very good question, Deputy Mayor. Service is, so as a part of those contracts, we will have a quality defined, right? So some of those KPIs, like this is what we need in those organics, and Ashwani can give more technical details if interested. But we are not just gonna let them bring anything and then dump it in the. So the loads will come up with the certificates. It will be tested, as we need it in certain parameters, and then there will be a program developed, to be honest with you, that we have seen in a lot of other facilities. Is you just can't, anybody from the off the road just can't come and dump. Not like what we used to get those liquid materials from various individuals in the plant. So it will be well structured program with when they're gonna come. There will be scheduling done, pre-notifications when they're going to come, which window they're going to come and dump it. We are even talking about having access card to come into for those vendors, and there will be QA/QC sampling done to ensure that they are meeting those requirements continuously. So Ashwani, in short, do you want to give some of your experience, what you guys are doing in like Toronto or other projects?
Yeah. Yeah, thank you, Deputy Mayor. So one of the things that is very important, and that's a very good question. Thank you for asking it. We do classify all organics in 3 segments. One is the energy value that it brings to us. The second is the solid load that it brings to us, which may need disposal or which may generate compost on the back end. And the number 3 is the hydraulic load that it's add up for treatment or for land application. And the net cost from all these 3 elements, the energy value is a positive contribution. The solids can be a neutral or slightly negative contribution. And the treatment or disposal is definitely a negative contribution. So the organics needs to all add up and should be a positive contribution to the plant. And when we sign a contract with these feedstock supplier, we set up a sliding scale around these. And we say, if the contribution is more, then we will take a lower tip fees from you. But if your number is low, then we'll take a higher tip fees from you. So we get compensated. So as far as the plant is concerned, we financially protect the plant by creating the sliding scale in the agreement. Thank you.
Thank you, Indra and Ashwani, for that answer. We'll go to Councillor McLean now.
Hey, Deputy Mayor. I have a question somewhat in line with your question in regards to investment. My question is, as the lowest monetary investor in this project, the town of Petawawa, will we lose control of the direction of the project itself with Aqua and Energia investing almost triple what we have?
I think, thanks, Councillor McLean. I think that's a very good question. So when we come in January, we'll come up with some models how the project can be delivered. And as we all know, in these kinds of transactions, the risks and rewards are attached together, right? So which is nothing uncommon. But in terms of the control, I believe the key control will always be with the town, because you are the ultimate decision maker. You can stop any point of the time, but the way of looking at the larger investment is also, whoever invests more, and I'm pointing towards Ashwani here, is taking on a more risks around the performance of the plant, right? So it can be looked in a different way too, but definitely the intention is to have the town full control over the project. So the initial discussions we had, as you might have heard, is, are we going to deliver this project based on the Municipal Services Corporation? And what does that mean is, Aqua and the town will be creating a structure, a special purpose vehicle that will own the assets of this project, and then operate it, and then get the investment from the Energia and complete the project. That is the model we are following in Stratford. That basically keeps the control within the town with the 51% share, and Aqua will have 49% or whatever that agreement, and then it stays within the public domain, fully controlled by the town. Then Energia will be, putting their investment and getting out the return as the revenue sharing agreement. But if we want to give a longer lease on the project, then we can shift some of those burdens and then create the design build kind of model that Energia can put more money and then do the project, and then give town and Aqua their share of the investment too. So again, there's a as you pointed out, Councillor Macklin, with the sliding scale, if the town wants to keep a rigid control, obviously the reward will also reflect that, right? It will be lesser reward and more risks. My question will be, does the town willing to take that more risks on this project, or moderate risks but still maintain a control? So we'll come up with some of these models for the council to consider when we come back in January, with the clear explanation of, if we stay with this model, here's the risks, here's the reward, and if you stay with the extreme one, you lose all the control, but then you don't carry any risks either, right?
Thank you for that answer. And I guess a follow-up question would just be, as this technology becomes more available, as Energia showcases it across Ontario, do you foresee a time where we're ever going to be competing for, I guess, what would the terminology be? Organics to feed these digesters, and it becomes not a revenue source but an actual burden.
Mm-hmm. And I think, sorry,
Indra, go ahead. I thought I'll take a first skip at it. So today, most of the big communities, especially the GTA, they're all struggling with excessive organics, and with landfill regulations that recently came in, which is making it more difficult for any landfill to expand with the new regulations. Obviously, hauling it across the border, the transportation cost is making them go up as high as $120 per metric ton of organics. The haulers are very keen, all the big haulers in Ontario, they're very keen to install some polishing treatment technologies and convert these organics, dirty organics, into clean polished pulp, which can be fed to municipal digesters, small and big, and distribute through the province. Today, I think even if it goes expanding, we do not see this number go up. Just in GT alone, there is excess of 78,000 metric ton of organics to date. And every year it is expanding by 4 or 5%. Indra, you may have more numbers around it. And then every big or small community, if you add on top of it, like the number of digesters that reside versus the hauling and logistic, I don't think Ontario especially will get into a competitive situation.
For this volume, yeah.
For this volume.
So,
and we are looking at a very small quantity, like
that's
just
what
to
I was
top up
gonna
all
say.
the digesters, you're looking at 2 trucks or 3 trucks. No, I don't think that will ever be a scarcity. And it all depends on the market price as such too, but then we can also put some local technology in as the market progresses to look at local organics and how to treat it offsite and bring clean organics to the wastewater treatment plant. So we'll keep those options open too.
So yeah, thanks. I truly appreciate Councillor McLean asking that question, and I was actually waiting for that question to be, as you must have seen in last 2 months, there has been a lot of moving parts in this organics file. The Bill 197, which the federal government is the province is considering to in the legislature, basically gives the local municipality within the, I think, 350-kilometer radius a say in a permit for the new landfill or expansion of the landfill. So what everybody is saying is that now we will never have any new landfill in this province, or we will not have any expansion. So that means you are basically eliminating the options of landfill disposal for the organics, right? Second, on the other hand, what the government just recently put out the public consultation for the food and organics framework, which has some clear languages around landfill ban for big cities, starting from 90,000 population and above. So that means it will create more supply now. So on one hand, you are trying to eliminate the disposal options in the landfill, and on the other hand, it is basically trying to force more organics program to generate more organics. So as Ashwani said, the market will see more of this volume. Now, the only option we have remaining in this province is to send all the organics to Michigan. And as Ashwani said, because that is not a sustainable, right? You can't send everything that is coming in the market to Michigan. So that's why we have seen a lot of these upticks in private projects where they're constructing new digester plants, and big cities are doing some of these big projects. Recently OMAFRA is completed a consultation around giving agricultural digester a little bit of leeway to get some of these organics too. But in your project context, as Ashwani said, just to reiterate, we are not looking for 100,000 tons. We are looking for 6,000 to start with, which is 1 tanker a day. And our project will have a offset capacity as per today's design of 2 trucks a day. So how to mitigate that risk, Councillor Macklin, is again, as I go back to the organic sourcing contract, right? So these haulers, they collect from a lot of different sources for a lot of volume, different parts of Ontario, and they always need these sustainable solution, long-term solutions too. So we are trying to provide that solutions to these market actors. Thank you.
Thank you for your very informative answer.
Just have a quick question, and then I'll go to Councillor Sabmary. Indra, you mentioned Stratford. I've been keeping my eye on Stratford because I know they're doing something similar to us, and I know Aqua is involved down there. They had their public consultation already, and as part of that, they decided they were going to process the organic material at the plant. Yes. But now that is not going to happen, and they're going to do something, I guess, similar or identical to us, just on a little bit larger scale. Have they reached the point where they've achieved the environmental approval, the REA?
Thank you, Councillor, Deputy Mayor. So just to correction, yeah, early this year, they explored, because the project was in making since 2019. And that also gives the council some idea about how many changes the market is seeing. So when we started working on Stratford project early 2019, getting pre-processed material was not in the picture. So we designed the whole project around bringing in the raw organics, right, to the plant in the tipping floor, and then separating it in the plant itself, and then pre-processing it. But early 2020, when we went through the public consultation and approvals and a market change, in a fast way. So the council, based on our recommendation, the council advised us, can we also look at not bringing in raw organics and just bringing in the pre-processing slurry, like what the Petawawa is doing? So we look at that option as per instructed by the council in early January, and we found that because we have moved so far away, it is not a significant benefit to change that at that point of the time. So the council approved the plan as it is to bring a raw food waste in the plant. So that's just a minor clarification. Yes, we received the permit, Deputy Mayor Gary, I believe in April, May of this year. So now we have a consolidated approval, ECA permit for air, water, and waste for that facility. And we were planning to start the construction around May, but as we all know, COVID and due to the COVID, the city wanted to assess its financial condition, which they completed back in October, and the project is back on the table to restart again.
And what is their plan to deal with their excess biogas or electricity? Do they have a plan in place?
So that's a good question. So their project is going to be estimated to take about 21,000 tons, which is about 3 times of what Petawawa will be doing. So they will be in a situation to produce this volume of biogas, which is self-sustainable and makes a financial sense to have that additional injection component to be injected into a gas line. So they will not be producing electricity in their case. They will be injecting the gas into pipeline. So we were in the final stages of offtake agreement with the gas utility to for the purchase or the sale of the RNG, renewable natural gas. But with the COVID, the council instructed everybody for us to not enter into any legally binding agreement somewhere around April. So we haven't signed yet, but we are in position to sign all the legal agreements, including the partnerships, like I said, the formation of the Municipal Services Corporation, design build contract, and everything is almost ready to be signed. But the council instructed in April to hold off on signing all of these due to COVID impact and not finalizing what the financial impact going to be on the city. So that exercise has been completed by the city, and there has been a renewed interest by the city saying we can handle that. Due to the financial impact, we still think the project is a good one. We can handle that. So I think it is being considered in upcoming weeks to put the project back on the schedule.
So in theory, should we go ahead with this, start with 6,000 tons, find out that it works well, and then go to the phase 2 where we up our tonnage amount and start to produce more gas, there is the potential to sell that excess gas into the pipeline to Enbridge.
Yes, there is. So yeah, as I said, at this point, we have the option of storing the gas and avoiding that additional investment on the injection components and a connection to the gas line, which seems rational at this point. But in phase 2, once we ramp up the production, yes, we can decide not to produce any electricity once we recover the money on recover the return on that CHP unit. We can just produce what we need, and we can divert the other remaining gas entirely to produce RNG. Now, I should also bring you, although it's very new in the market, I should also bring you that hydrogen is a big new fuel in the market, and converting a biogas into hydrogen has a lot of advantages compared to RNG too. So that's something we as a project team are keeping an eye on. The federal government and the province both are have formed working group within the government to look at hydrogen as a clean fuel that is going to be a fuel of the future and will be a economic job creation and economic activity creation in the province. So we are keeping a close eye on different hydrogen applications around the market. So there's some companies that are coming in front of us with the offer of purchasing hydrogen with the in adoption of their technologies. So that is another option which might become more realistic in next year or so too. So we are also keeping that in our radar at this point.
Thank you, Indra. Councillor Sabri.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Indra, just a follow-up question so that I'm clear from what Councillor Moens had said with respect to our investment. I understand that for the digesters, we are going to have to put in $750,000. So I think what I'm taking away anyways is that we're asking for or the ask is from the town for an additional $250,000, which all things considered doesn't sound like a lot of money. Is that correct? Just because I like to hear the $250,000 in my head.
Now, not understanding all these numbers, I might have to defer that to Dave. What I can say is that, yes, we are expecting $1 million from the town. Now, I'm not sure where that money is going to come from or how it's being assigned. So that's why I'm deferring it to Dave.
Okay.
Yeah, no, your understanding is completely correct. If we do nothing and don't go ahead with the project, we'll be looking at 750,000 plus. I'm saying the plus because that was based on 2018 numbers, and so with inflation and with COVID, that price would have increased. And so if we do go ahead with the project, then the increased investment, might be in the order of $200,000 to $250,000.
Thank you. Two more questions, if I could. The one question is with respect to what you were talking about, Indra, with technologies that will be developed in the coming years. How flexible or whatnot are you and is Energia with respect to bringing those technologies in? And I guess my question would be, if those technologies do come in, would you be potentially approaching the town again to say, okay, here's an opportunity, this is what it's going to cost? Is there some, I guess, fluidity to the agreement or as the environmental landscape changes? So that's that question. And then my final question is just typically when you're looking at these kind of agreements, what's the term length? Are they a 20-year agreement? Are they a 25-year agreement? I recognize that there's a return of investment difference between all the partners and whatnot, but those are my two questions. If you could answer them, please.
Yeah, I'll take a crack, and Ashwani, jump in if you have to. That's a good question. So usually most of these projects starts with about 10-year agreement to start with. So that will include a construction phase too. So typically the construction phase is 2 to 3 years, and then 7 years of operation. And most of these contracts will be based on the performance. So the performance return based on performance. So the performance is mostly around, firstly, the equipment itself, which comes from the equipment provider, and the second will be a performance based on the project. As the councillors have been discussing here, if you don't get the organics, then you don't get the biogas or you don't get the electricity. So it's a twofold impact, right? So that's why it is very essential that the project is packaged as a project performance warranties or guarantees too. So that's first. So second question is, can the project adopt new needs or requirements as we progress down the road? And the answer would be yes. So what if, so you have 4 digesters, as you know, and what if, there's a market and there's a lot of organics availability? Can we cast that opportunity? Yes, there will be some investment needed, definitely, but there will be opportunity. So, and that's the core theme of this project is we are trying to leverage what you have. We are not trying to build any significant assets into the facility at this point. Yes, we are trying to build one liquid storage tank. We are trying to put some equipment that will trigger or fast track the treatment process that will free up the digester capacity, and then CHP engine and some of these other components. But the digesters are the key asset for the whole project and your facility. And we are not trying to build another one. So that would be the answer. And Ashwani, if you want to add anything on the technology.
You're right. I think the assets belong to the town. Energia is a technology developer, a technology supplier, and service provider. Obviously, the control, how the agreements should be done, or how the facility should be operated, resides with the town. The tenure, Indra, you nailed it. It's somewhere around 7 to 10 years. But at the same time, we have to make sure that the equipment runs for that period. We service the equipment. Somebody needs to operate that equipment, and the asset resides with the town. So once the service agreement or the tenure is over, the asset stays with the town for future revenue generation as well.
And also I think, Ashwani, you can correct me if I'm misstating here. All the investments we make in any assets, whether it's retrofit or new asset, will not go wasted. if the market changes down the road. It will be complementary. Yes, there will be incremental injection to take advantage of the new market opportunities, but none of these investment will be wasted down the road.
Absolutely.
you.
These are assets, yes.
Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Sabourin. Just to add to Councillor Sabourin's question about future upgrades, because you did mention with if there were more tonnage added in the future in phase 2, that it would increase the ammonia output, and something would have to be done to upgrade this facility to deal with the extra ammonia. So in terms of that kind of upgrade and any other future upgrades, who would be on the hook for those additional costs? Would our partners be there with us again to say, you know, we'd like to help invest in these upgrades, or would the town be on the hook for all of these future upgrade costs?
Yeah, that's a very important question, Deputy Mayor Services. That's one of the things I have been having discussion with David. Is some of the issues are our grandfather's issues, right? Like the limit around ammonia, the plant, on a seasonal basis, the plants sometimes have that issue that needs to be addressed. So should we consider it absolutely as a part of the project, or should we consider it as a necessary upgrade to maintain your wastewater? So what we are trying to do is that if we do not do this project at all, what are the upgrades that the plant needs to do in next 10 years? So that we can give you a better picture. We are not saying you have to pay 100% or we have to pay 100%. I'm just trying to give that better clarity to all the decision makers in the council. Is if we don't do this project, is the town required to do some upgrades around the ammonia control down the road? If the answer is yes, then we will include this as a part of the phase 2. But how to work that around the equation, whether some of it should be funded by the ratepayers, or whether it should be totally put on this model, that either way it's okay. But I think I will leave that up to the town to decide, because if we put that project in that upgrade in this whole project concept, then all three parties, the benefits will have to be shared with all three parties, and there will be interest on the cost of capital too. But if it comes from the ratepayers, I'm not sure about how it works. So those are the transparent pictures we will present to the town, so that the decision makers can make those informed decisions. But again, we are here in every stage of the project, just to reiterate that.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just going to add another item on that, is that, so we worked really hard with Aqua in the last couple of years and put together a very comprehensive water and water study. And so all these upgrades that Indra is talking about that could potentially happen have already been based into the rate study. So the current rates and the current rate projected outwards for the next 5 or 10 years has already included those upgrades. So as Indra said, yes, we could pull them out and put them in this project, but then we would have to then reevaluate the rate review. So I'm not sure if we'd want to do that, but it's certainly open to the town council decision.
Okay, thanks. Are there any further questions for Indra, Dave, or Shwani from members of council? Okay, I don't see any. So I think, Dan, maybe I can ask you, what we're looking for here is an approval on those 4 requests from council today.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I think there's a resolution for council's consideration that council provides direction to staff and Aqua to proceed with public consultation, submit REA application to MECP, sign non-binding MOU with organic suppliers and other project partners as required, and update the LCEF with revised schedule. And we will spell out those acronyms according to my deputy clerk.
So when you say provide LCEF with updated schedule, are we asking them for an extension?
That is correct. The extension in line with what's included in these slides that I presented, Deputy Mayor.
Okay, and just so council understands that if approval is given for these 4 requests, it is not costing us any extra money, and it is not taking us beyond the point of no return. We're just moving to the next stage. We aren't committing to any further to this project, and it's not going to cost us any extra money. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct.
Okay, is there something official that needs to be read to council before we ask for their approval here, Dan?
Yes, I can read it again, Deputy, if you'd like.
Hang on a second.
But I'm leaving the acronyms in. But do you have members of council that are asking questions?
Yes, we have Councillor Moans and then Councillor Sabri. You have to unmute there, Councillor Moans. You're still muted, Councillor Moans.
I understood it the first time, and I will move it. Move the motion.
Councillor Sabri, did you want to second the motion? Okay, so we have a mover and a seconder. That means you don't have to read it all again, Dan. I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Anyone opposed? It's carried. Okay, am I done? Can I call the mayor back in? Okay, thanks everybody. Thanks, Indra.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ashwani.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll see you back on January. Thanks. Take care. Bye.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, I guess I'll turn things over to Mayor Sweet.
Okay, so we're back on track. Okay, interesting discussion. Well done to everyone. So we'll go on to the agenda now. The first is Public Works. We'll go to the October monthly report. David, it's your report. See a whole bunch of green things across the top. That's usually pretty good.
Yeah.
Your report.
Yeah, that's usually very good. So the report is in front of you. I'll just highlight a couple items. So at the bottom of page 18, so one of the pieces of equipment that we are still yet to receive is the 1 ton, and we're scheduled to receive that in November. We've talked closely with the manufacturer, so that is scheduled to be delivered in November. A couple items on the next page, right at the bottom. So projects completed by the County of Renfrew. I know there's been some interest from council in the last little bit in regards to activities on these roads. So one is in regards to the warrants to review the intersections along Laurentian Drive. So I've been updated that that work is still proceeding. They have done, I think, 2 of the intersections and are completing the review. Like the first step is to actually gather data. And then after that, then they'll analyze it and come up with the recommendations. And the other one that I've been involved in just recently is that the county has moved forward with doing detailed design, and there's a report later on in regards to what are the options we're looking at, but detailed design on the 3 intersections along Petawawa Boulevard. So that's the Paquette, Festibird, and Petawawa Boulevard intersection, the Portage Victoria, Petawawa Boulevard, and the Dorn Moans, Petawawa Boulevard intersections. So AECOM has been hired. We've had 1 kickoff meeting. And the idea by the county is to have these projects shovel ready, as they want to say in the industry, so that if funding comes available, that they'll be able to proceed with that work very quickly and make application for any funding that's available. The other item that I would like to highlight is at the bottom of page 21. So under the locates. So again, a lot of locates done by the Public Works Department over this past month, 130. And then just also to make council aware that so over the last probably 3 to 4 years, we've had NRTC and SafeBore come in and do installation of fiber. So Bell Canada is now going to be starting in the town and starting in the Highland Park subdivision. So that's the first that they've come into the town with fiber. So they'll start that installation. They were talking that they wanted to start as early as this fall and then work into the spring. I think that's going to be delayed into the spring, but we're working with them on that proposal. On page 22, under water and sanitary, just highlight that we have received the letter for the contract negotiations with Aqua, and staff is reviewing it and anticipate that report to council would be in November. On the top of page 23, under the municipal energy plan, we have a draft of that document and looking to bring that forward in the next month or two after staff reviews it and provides comments. Under initiatives, so we've had the update under the biosolids, and we expect the business plan to be presented in the first quarter of 2021. The bicycle friendly community workshop. So we've received that draft document, and it's being reviewed by staff, and that will be coming forward to committee shortly. And then also currently working on a report that documents the Vision Zero initiative that is put on by Cowan and OGRA. And it's an international initiative to eliminate or reduce as much as possible accidents. And that kind of works in hand with that request from the Petawawa Police Service Board. And so those two will be addressed in the same report. So lots of work has gone on this past year, and everything is coming to a head in regards to construction projects being completed, but also a lot of the reports have come all at once. And I think senior staff is a little bit peeved at me in regards to the amount of documents to review at this time, but we're working through them, and we'll be bringing reports shortly to council. That's all I wanted to highlight. If there was any questions.
Thank you, David. Open up for questions. Just a couple of things I'll mention. But the buzzwords, David, that we're supposed to use is not shovel ready, but shovel worthy. Apparently that's one of the things that makes it a little bit more important in terms of moving forward. There's $247,000 has been allocated by the county to do these traffic circles, for your information. Seems to be a lot of interest on fiber going on, David, including the fiber that they're putting in the transmission lines. There's 90 kilometers of high-speed fiber on the transmission lines. Also, Cogeco is running a line down, I believe, the Algonquin Trail from Petawawa all the way into to Ottawa. Plus, you're talking about Bell here as well. So there's a lot of interest on fiber. Hopefully, we'll be able to get cell phone coverage along Dorn Road, that you don't have to step outside, or as you're driving hands-free, you lose contact. So seems to be a lot of initiatives going forward on the fiber case. The golf course road, I was driving down there today. Seems it's getting close to being completed. Are you familiar with that, or can you keep us up to date a little bit on that?
Yeah, so Golf Course Road, we were extremely fortunate with the weather last week. We've been in close contact with both contractors for Airport Road and Golf Course Road. And we're concerned coming up to the end of October to ensure that both projects get completed. So we've worked well and really closely with those contracts. And like I said, we had great weather last week and was able to get top lift both on Airport Road and Golf Course Road. So we're probably looking at getting substantial completion this Friday. The line painting probably won't happen until Monday, I think, of next week. But majority of the activities, and like I said, substantial completion will be achieved on Friday for Golf Course Road. Airport Road is probably a little closer along in regards to getting substantial completion.
Thank you. Transmission line, although it's not part of your report, it is coming along pretty good, I believe.
Yeah, I understand with some of the outages that they were ahead of schedule in regards to their activities. And so I haven't been made aware of any issues with that work. And like you said, it's been moving ahead quite well.
I lost the power at 9 o'clock on Thursday evening. That spared me the watching the debate between President Trump and the Vice President. So it was out for 20 minutes. So it spared me the torture of watching that particular situation. Any questions on the report? Seeing none, I need motion, please. Murray, seconded by James. All in favor? It's carried. There we go. Next item is, did you want to talk a little bit about the traffic numbers or no, David?
Yeah, I actually should have brought that up because that's an attachment to that report. Yeah, I just, we've got the two counters now on the Algonquin Trail. So one at Biesenthal now and another one at Dorn. So we're able to capture the numbers at both locations. So that's what you see right now is the report for Dorn and also the one at Biesenthal. It's interesting, the numbers at Dorn Street, and the busiest times are during the week, Thursdays, Tuesday, and a Monday, where the largest or busiest day for activity over that. So, it's not like the other one where it's busier during the weekends. This one is busy during the weekend, and that's the focus that we were hoping that it would be more used as a commuter route and also as a recreational, but really focus on commuter cycling. So and walking. So that's good to see.
Thank you for that. Okay, we'll go on to PW 2020. David?
Yeah, so this was just basically bringing the document that you received that presentation on last week and just bringing it in front of council. I'd be open to any questions if there is any, or certainly would receive any questions at a later date if anyone would like to ask anything.
Yeah, it was a lot of information to digest that particular evening. So I don't know, as our members of committee or council got any questions on the asset management plan. Teresa.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's not a question, actually, just a comment. After the presentation and after digesting everything, I have to say I was not quick enough at the last meeting to point out that I thought that $813,000, well, that seems like a lot of money. I was expecting us to have a bigger gap in our asset management plan funding than that. So I was pretty pleased to see that. It means that, at least to me, that we are putting money in appropriately into our different service areas, and I certainly think that that is an achievable amount for us to be planning for future spending. So thank you.
Thank you. Further on that, anyone? So then we'll receive that as an information item. Pardon me? Just says you want this for information. You want a resolution on that for information? Okay, the clerk wants a resolution here. Tom, Gary, no discussion, all in favor? It's carried, thank you. Traffic circle. David?
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. So as I was mentioning in my my monthly report, so we have had the kickoff meeting with AECOM, and so I forgot to mention that Garrison Petawawa was part of the conversation, also key stakeholder. So it's great to have the three organizations or individuals, not individuals, but organizations working together on this project to come up with the best solution. So one of the things that came out of the meeting was that at the end or the completion of the environmental assessment, the recommendation for the intersection of Dorn, Mones, and Avenue, or Mones Avenue and Petawawa Boulevard was option number 1 that I've highlighted in the next page of the report. And there was several reasons for that at the time. Availability of land was a large component of that. There's a lot of things that have changed since then, and the availability of the land, the use of the Algonquin Trail, and then also the twinning paved portion of it. So the recommendation that we had out of the kickoff meeting, or I guess the ask, was that I would go back to council and see if council would be open to a roundabout in that location. There's certainly lots of benefits to a roundabout, and certainly in a location like this where roads are not meeting at 90 degrees, it really lends itself to a roundabout, and a regular intersection just doesn't work because of the sight lines and that. With the roundabout also, it enables some additional I guess opportunities, with respect to the active transportation, sidewalks and bike paths. So you can use, there's lots of creative solutions out there to incorporate them in a safe manner. And so the recommendation is that the County of Renfrew and AECOM install the roundabout, or not install, but do the design for the roundabout for that intersection. So I'd be open to any questions.
I'll open it up. Gary, Teresa, James. Go ahead, Gary.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Dave, I'm looking at the two options, and I guess you're asking us to consider a roundabout. The one thing that I don't see on there is how the Algonquin Trail would get around that roundabout. So I'm assuming that will come with the more detailed drawings.
Yeah, so what you're seeing right now is the options that were presented in the environmental assessment. And so that concluded back in, I want to say 2012, 2013. So like I said, there's lots that have changed there. And then land is the biggest thing. And so you'd probably see a larger footprint. You would see, or at least my recommendations would, you'd see some like protected bike routes through that. You know, it's certainly, you know, with those additional pathways, it lends itself to a roundabout a little bit better. You're able to move that traffic through that intersection a lot better through a roundabout. There's lots of creative ideas that are come out of, and you can see them in Southern Ontario and out in BC, and especially over in Europe.
Because I know the pictures you showed us express concerns about ATVs and strollers and bikes crossing Dorn Street to get to the other side of the trail. But with the roundabout design, the way it's pictured there, these ATVs, cyclists, and runners are going to have to cross Dorn Street and Hilda Street now in order to get from both sides of the trail. So I'm not, maybe I'm nitpicking here, but I'm not sure how that makes it safe for all these trail users when they have to cross two streets instead of one.
Yeah, and I guess that's what I'm saying is that what you're seeing in option 2 is what was provided in the environmental assessment. What you'll see now that with the additional land that's available, you'll see a much different configuration. Yes, they would certainly have to go through the Dorn and Hilda legs of that roundabout, but like I said, that they'll be protected and probably a raised portion. So they would, you know, again, just thinking out of the top of the air here, like, you know, you'd cross Dorn first, and then you'd be protected by a raised intersection, and then cross Hilda. You know, so it would be all protected. Like, you know, there's a lot of creative ideas out there in regards to cycle channels through roundabouts.
And my final question is, it appears from the drawing that there are 2 lanes of traffic coming from the Garrison end approaching that roundabout. Does that mean they're going to add an extra lane from, say, Victoria Street to the roundabout?
Yeah, so again, I'll have to repeat that this is a concept that was done in 2012, 2013 as part of the environmental assessment. And so this part of the project is strictly dealing with the intersection and not dealing with anything in between, say, Victoria and Dorn. So it will be built such that it could expand in the future if required, but it would be based on the existing configurations of the road.
Okay, thanks, Dave.
Who did I see? James and Teresa, or Teresa and James? Go ahead, Teresa.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. David, just through the mayor to you, just in regards to the Dora and Hilda Mons Boulevard roundabout, is the land, is there any private land that has to be purchased for this configuration, or is it between the town and the county that owns all that? Thank you.
Yeah, so we haven't looked at this stage yet of land acquisition, but since that the county owns that large portion now that used to be the CP Rail, certainly they could encroach into that area and not have to go anywhere near any private land. But you know, that's a little bit premature right now to kind of say that we would not need any land from any of the adjacent landowners. But that will be details to come.
Thank you.
Yeah.
James?
Thank you, Mayor Sweet. So my question is sort of 2 parts, and I think the first part's been answered in that option 2 is no longer perfectly accurate. There's a modification of that to come.
Yeah, that's
And-
correct.
Okay, so I was wondering if we have any encroachment issues in that area that might cause problems with this.
So are you referring to encroachment of private property into?
Encroachment onto either county or municipally owned property.
Yeah. Yeah, again, until the details are really hashed out, I can't say specifically. You know, the only one that I would know of is the I guess it's the insurance company that's off of Hilda, their parking, but you know, that's so far away from that intersection that I don't think that will be affected. And then in regards to the other two corners, I don't think there is any existing encroachment at this point. So.
Mhm.
I think what we're looking at here is an agreement really in principle, or an understanding in principle, that you're comfortable with a traffic circle in that particular area. I think every effort will be made not to encroach on any private property, because that would slow the thing down. And if you have to do that, you're into an environmental assessment, and that's not a thing that I think that the county wants to get involved with. The ability to place this traffic circle in that configuration that of all of the land now that's owned by the county, including the Algonquin Trail, I don't think we should be too concerned about what we see as far as option 2 is concerned, but rather wait and see what they come up with in terms of a design for a traffic circle there. If council is comfortable with that concept at that particular location.
Mhm. Okay,
I think
just before I go,
pardon me?
Just before I go, generally speaking, I'm totally in favor of the traffic circle.
Yeah, I see Tom. Tommy, you need to unmute. No, Tom, you need to unmute, sorry.
I think the whole
There you go.
idea is that whether we want to go ahead with at the option of putting a traffic circle in there. And if we go
That's
back,
correct.
the number one idea is that to move traffic along Petawawa Boulevard, if we put one in up in the base at Paquette and another one at Victoria, if we don't put one in here, we're just putting up another roadblock. We got 2 traffic circles coming up against a stop sign. So we're just moving the problem down. I think we have to go all the way and look at the option of putting in the third one so we can keep the traffic moving. There's lots of details to be worked out, but I think the prime objective is to put in all 3 traffic circles so we can keep the traffic flowing, and then we can work out the details as far as the cycling trail, everything else will all fall into place. But the whole idea is, do we look at going ahead with the third roundabout? And I follow James's lead and say, I think it's a no-brainer. I think we have to.
Well, we've been chasing this for years, and that was always part and parcel of the whole concept of moving traffic. You can't take your problem from the front yard and shove it to the backyard if you're not going to try and solve it. And I'm pleased that the garrison is at the table. It was always a scenario at Paquette Road with the garrison being involved in it there. They were always on board with it. The last 3 garrison commanders, 3 garrison commanders always wanted to see that happen. So I guess what the county is really asking at this point is just for an agreement in principle, an understanding in principle that they go ahead with the design for a traffic circle, particularly at that particular location. Bearing in mind what you're saying, Tom, is absolutely on par with what we've been promoting, or at least I've been promoting for years with the county and the garrison. Who had their hands up? Is it Gary? Gary.
I'm solidly behind anything that gets the traffic moving on the boulevard.
Yeah.
But what I'd like to make sure of is if we agree to allow the county to do a design, are we then going to be able to see that design before we improve the implementation of the circle? Or if we say, yes, we agree with the traffic circle, they're going to design and put in whatever they want to do. Are we going to get a chance to vet their design before that traffic circle is put in?
I'll leave that to David. He's sitting at the table with this particular thing. But I would hope that we would have an opportunity to see what is actually going to take place in the town. It is our town. So yes, I would have to think that I would want to see that happen. And I'll make every point at the county to make sure that we get a look at this before a final cross the T and dot the I's are concerned.
Thanks.
Okay. Who else had their hand up? So you see the recommendation. If there's nobody else wants to speak to this, I need a motion to accept the recommendation, please. James and Murray, any other discussion? Call for the vote. All in favor? Opposed, if any? It's carried. Thank you. Okay. We're at your budget. David, is there anything in your budget you want to talk to us about?
No, nothing to highlight, but I'll just open up to any questions that council might have.
Questions of the budget from David, or for David? No, and we'll receive that as information. Thank you very much. Okay, planning and develop. Oh, yeah, planning and development. Oh, I assume that was all part and parcel of it. Okay, water waste and water. Anything you want to talk to us about, David?
No, open up to any questions.
Questions? Thank you. We'll receive that as information. Okay, planning and activity report. Where are you, Karen? There you are.
Good evening.
September 2020.
Yes, just a couple of updates on the planning report. Under the site plan for the Emmanuel Lighthouse Church, they're still working towards their site plan approval. The main issue right at this point in time is their storm water management report. So they're working on that and looking to get that towards our engineer as soon as possible. We have two zoning bylaw amendment applications. The Eichstead file, public meeting is slated for November 16th. Excuse me. This is a rezoning from RU to R1, and this is a condition of a severance application. Zoning bylaw amendment for Whiting. This is actually for 912 Doran Road. This is the former Lutheran school facility, rezoning from community facility to residential 1. And there will be an exception involved here because there is a very slight reduction in the frontage and lot area. You will have a consent application before you to consider as well with this application. With respect to subdivisions, Radke Estates, Phase 2, I was contacted by the developer who will actually be looking for an extension of draft approval. That draft plan actually lapses in January. So we need to get that before council soon. Also, sorry, I skipped over the Shamus subdivision. We've had a lot of correspondence back and forth with the Shamuses, working towards dealing specifically with the fire damage dwelling on that particular subdivision lands and additional removal of vehicles. So that's still happening. In terms of other files, lots of pre-consultation taking place with respect to apartment developments, additional consents coming forward, and we're expecting a variance to the Hyundai amended site plan. Under other, excuse me, the Red Cross, we're looking for an updated agreement and some COVID protocols for the members that are using that site. And those are basically the updates that I can provide.
Okay, questions of the report? None? Okay, need a motion, please. Gary, Murray, all in favor? Gary, thank you. And you've got your building report, activity report. Okay.
Yes, lots of statistics there. I guess we're down about 45 permits from this time last year. But again, as I've said, certainly our building permit fees are keeping us in the game, if you will. And certainly I can take any questions that council may have.
Okay, questions of the building report? Yeah, you make a point that's important. The revenue stream has not disappeared. It's still there. Need a motion to accept the report. James, Teresa, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Okay, so now we go to PL 24-2020 consent file. Karen, please.
Yes. Subject Colleen and Dugan Hawkins, part lot 15, concession 1, consent files B27/20 to B30/20. These are consent applications fronting on Barron Canyon and Preview Roads. Recommendation that Planning Committee support the granting of consent files B27/20, B28, B29, and B30 on the following conditions. Number 1, that the barn on the retained lands is demolished. Prior to the demolition, we require an issuance of a demo permit through building services. We would also suggest a rezoning of the severed lands from rural to residential 1, and the submission of a registered reference plan confirming lot size and frontage for each lot. The purpose and effect of the applications is to sever 4 residential lots with frontage of 60 meters and a minimum lot area of 0.4 hectares, which is 1 acre. The proposed severances are designated rural under the OP and zoned rural under the zoning bylaw. The retained parcel is designated rural and environmental protection and zoned rural. You have been provided with the key map and site plan, as well as the County of Renfrew consent planning report. This report outlines a variety of items that are pertinent to the consent files. Certainly the provincial policy statement. There is provincial interest with respect to the MDS formula. So utilizing the MDS formula, it was determined that there were necessary to be separation distances for new residences in relation to the existing livestock and manure operations. There were actually 5 properties in the immediate, within 750 meters that had some form of livestock facility or a manure storage facility. Both severances, 2 of the severances front on Barron Canyon Road and 2 front on Preview Road. Under the official plan, both the County of Renfrew Public Works as well as the Town Public Works must be satisfied that they can issue entrance permits into these new lots. I did circulate to our town engineer. As well, there was an objection letter that you received in your package. The information again was provided to Public Works, and our engineer did not have any issues with respect to the entrance nor with respect to drainage on the subject land. So once again, recommendation based on those 3 items. The barn on the retained lands is to be demolished, rezoning of the severed lands, and then the submission of a registered reference plan.
Thank you, Karen. Questions of this before I ask for a motion, if you're comfortable with the recommendation? Any questions? Councillor James.
Thank you, Mayor Sweet. So 4 severances and the retained lands, does that max out the severances on that piece of property then?
Yes,
I
it
believe
does.
it does, but I'll leave it up to Karen to tell you that.
It does. Overall, there would be 6 severances that would have been taken off the original holding. So that maxes things out at this point.
Thank you.
Other questions? Then I need a motion, please. Murray, seconded by Tom. No discussion. All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. PL 2520, backyard hens. Karen, please.
Yes, thank you. Recommendation that council consider the following options regarding the allowance of backyard hens. Option 1, no change. The town zoning bylaw and animal control bylaw would remain the same, and chickens would only be permitted within rural zones and continue to be considered a farm use, requiring a minimum lot size of 5 hectares. Option 2, amend the zoning bylaw and animal control bylaw, recognizing that the 5 hectares as the minimum lot size for the keeping and raising of chickens is likely more than required. Consider reducing the lot size to open up a number of additional residential lots within the rural unserviced area of town, but continue to include the use as a farm related use. And then number 3, public consultation. In order to gauge the interest in the keeping of backyard hens, council authorizes staff to create a public consultation process to determine where the support for this use exists within the town's residential zone. Consultation would be required prior to the adoption of the official plan amendment, zoning bylaw amendment, and amendments to animal control. So overall, the purpose of the report was to respond to a referral by council of a deputation by Laura Hannock and Jordan Rabishaw back in August of 2020. And the related petition requesting that council consider changing the bylaws to allow the keeping of up to 6 hens in residentially zoned areas. The report also addresses the issues and options associated with permitting backyard hens within residential areas of the town of Petawawa, and also tries to facilitate and identify policy changes that would be required if council was interested in permitting backyard hens. Through the report, staff did outline a number of issues and considerations relating to permitting backyard hens. And again, the need for specific amendments to some of our planning documents and municipal act documents. On August 17th, 2020, Ms. Laura Hannock and Mr. Jordan Rabishaw made a presentation to council that was providing additional information, understanding of the benefits of allowing backyard chickens within town, the more urban area of town. Excuse me. Certainly Ms. Hannock and Mr. Rabishaw did show that they have considerable experience in raising chickens over the years as a food source, but they also indicated that these chickens also become more than just that food source. They're pets. They do provide fertilizer for lawns and gardens. They aid in cleaning up the yard, and keeping of chickens provides for a source of food education as well as food security. The presentation was also framed to identify a number of misconceptions about chickens, and noted a number of municipalities in Ontario do permit small numbers of egg-laying hens in residential areas. A petition was also provided to staff, 1,100 signatures in favor of backyard chickens. And the presenters did request that council consider running a pilot program that would allow a maximum of 6 hens without a special permit. So staff did undertake to review significant information. And I will tell you, there is a vast amount of information out there with respect to backyard hens. It seems with 444 municipalities in Ontario, there's 444 different ways of looking at backyard hens. And most municipalities that are allowing backyard hens sort of have a twist to their regulations, which makes sense because then those regulations reflect community needs. So in terms of urban agriculture, certainly the request for keeping and raising of backyard hens is the most common type of agriculture that is requested. Of course, most people are used to the keeping of livestock out in the rural areas. So that to some, this is a new consideration. Others, again, they're very well versed in the keeping of backyard hens. I did provide you with the information that's specifically outlined on the OMAFRA website that suggests that municipal council should certainly consider a number of issues prior to developing bylaws associated with keeping of livestock. Animal health and public health. I won't go into each one of them because you've got your reports and I'm sure you've all read them. Animal care, of course, predators, as well as food safety. Certainly with respect to predators, the more I read on this topic, it seems that the raccoons and foxes and really the more domestic animals, whether cats or dogs, seem to be the biggest threat from the material that I read. I outlined a couple of regulatory tools that are available to the town. Of course, we're all very well versed in the zoning bylaws. So Section 34 of the Planning Act regulates uses that are permitted through the municipalities in terms of land use. The bylaw under the authority of the Municipal Act is used to regulate the keeping of animals or licensing animals. Regulations can be passed to permit the keeping of backyard hens. And it is within this bylaw that we can actually set out a wide range of regulations if we choose to do so. Probably the animal control bylaw is the most efficient form of enforcement for this type of use because we are, of course, dealing with animals and there are sort of permits as well as fines associated with this type of use. So it would be a more efficient way. The zoning bylaw is very cumbersome. So in terms of the town official plan, the zoning bylaw and the animal control, currently the town OP permits agriculture on lands that are designated rural. It does speak to the minimum distance separation formula as well. So these types of calculations are meant to reduce land use between farms and non-farm uses. Should council wish to pursue permitting backyard hens within residential areas, specific policies should be added to our official plan so that there's actually a framework from which our zoning or, well, specifically the zoning bylaw can fall from. The zoning bylaw, I've indicated a couple of definitions with respect to livestock. Section 2.75 defines a farm, which includes livestock. Section 2.112 defines livestock, which includes chickens. Again, under the current zoning bylaw, farm use is permitted within the rural zone and it requires a minimum of 5 hectares. So again, in order to permit backyard hens in residential zones, the zoning bylaw would need to be amended in order to permit backyard hens as a permitted accessory use. And then we can decide if you want regulations to fall out of those, the provisions of the zoning bylaw, or again, we can look at the animal control bylaw. The current bylaw 174/01 defines chickens as a class 2 animal. And these animals are permitted within residential, are not permitted within on any lot zoned residential, commercial, or industrial within the town of Petawawa. Now, I did provide under experience in other municipalities, excuse me, I tried to capture a wide range of provisions that municipalities are using for the keeping and raising of backyard hens. All of the provisions Some municipalities, of course, do have pilot programs, which we did hear from Ms. Hannock and Mr. Rabishaw. And there's lots of information on the running of those types of pilot programs. The various regulations certainly tend to limit the number of hens that are permitted within the program. As well, roosters are normally banned for obvious reasons. Regulations also prescribe the overall size of a hen coop as well as the hen run. Some municipalities prescribe separation distances from certain adjacent land uses. So similar to that minimum distance separation formula, some municipalities require greater setbacks based on the adjacent land uses. So that's something that can be used. In some cases, notification or consent from adjacent landowners is required. Minimum lot areas and frontages are also identified in most of the bylaws. Sale of eggs or slaughter of hens is prohibited. And then one very important part of the whole program would be guidelines and educational documents. They're often produced by municipalities to educate residents so that they're very well aware of what's required and the implications in moving towards keeping backyard hens. I did provide a number of potential benefits and issues of backyard hens. Many of these benefits were identified within the presentation that was given to council. Access to locally grown food, educational and social benefits concerning the means of food production, production of natural fertilizer, improved social and emotional well-being of those raising livestock, pest control, cut down on food waste by providing kitchen leftovers to chickens. As well, there are a number of potential issues. Many of these issues are sort of an extension of the OMAFRA information, so they would need to be addressed as well. So land use compatibility, licensing, administration and enforcement, disease transmission, predators and pests, animal health, manure disposal, sale of livestock, diminishing production and disposal of animals. In terms of planning comments, just to summarize, again, should council wish to permit backyard hens within residential zones, there's the need for an official plan amendment, zoning bylaw amendment, and amendments to the animal control bylaw. Decisions will need to be made with respect to appropriate minimum lot sizes, as well as those specific regulations and performance standards necessary for tracking and enforcement of this type of use. Minimum distance separation, again, this is not something that would be applicable within the urban area of town. But as just noted, there are opportunities for municipalities to create those specific separation distances in the bylaws themselves. I've noted that some municipalities have reduced the minimum lot sizes for farm use down to 2 hectares. The MDS formula still applies within the rural areas where livestock are actually kept. Consultation should be considered prior to the preparation of any planning documents in order to determine the actual interest for this type of use. Clarification with respect to interest in backyard hens within the more urban area of town is important, as the petition did note 1,100 people signed the petition. 375 people were actual residents of the town of Petawawa. And certainly, please note that for me identifying that 375, I certainly am not minimizing the efforts of Ms. Hannock or Mr. Rabishaw. Certainly they're very informed in the process, and their efforts don't go unnoticed. The town's bylaw enforcement and our animal control service does need to be consulted. There is not a program obviously in place, and so there are implications with respect to a budget in order to deal with any issues associated with the program. So I did note financial implications. There would be standard operating costs that may need processing of applications, issuance of licenses, inspections of coops, enforcement of non-compliance or complaints, and certainly staff resources, as well as the need for that public education material is a financial consideration. And again, speaking to the animal control contractor. So in conclusion, the report again does outline benefits and issues that council needs to consider and weigh those benefits and issues. There are financial implications. Certainly in recommending option 2, obviously, it's in reviewing the material, our current zoning bylaw provisions, it's very obvious that the consideration should be made to the minimum lot size for farms with respect to the keeping of chickens. It's clear that 12.35 acres or 5 hectares isn't needed for the keeping of backyard hens. So this option was initially looked at as a sort of a compromise or a middle ground, if you will, with respect to this type of use. Certainly option 3 or public consultation would be the next step in regards to moving urban chickens forward. And that's my report.
Thank you very much, Karen. It's spent a lot of time and effort putting this report together. I think there's a pile of information. You've worked very hard and it's very complete as far as I'm concerned with regards to this particular situation and particular issue. I'll open it up for questions or comments from members of committee. Matthew, James, Teresa.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Hey, thank you, Karen, for this report. I mentioned some of my comments in an email to all members of council earlier because I was concerned about losing connectivity throughout this meeting. However, I haven't, so I'll voice them here if you just give me a second. So I think this report could use a little more information, although it does mention some of the risks. I feel it fails to quantify the amount of risks those pose to us as a community if we do allow backyard hens inside the residential area. I would say that option 1 provides no change to the petitioner's request. Neither does option number 2, knowing that both the petitioners are from residential areas. Therefore, I believe that the only option we should be considering as a council is option number 3, which is further consultation of the public in order for a bylaw change. And that's it. Thanks.
Teresa or James? James or Teresa? Teresa, how about you?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm already unmuted. Thank you very much, Karen, for the report. There's an awful lot of information in there for us to digest and an awful lot of research that's gone into that. I certainly would also support proceeding with option number 3. I think that the 375 or 300 plus signatures tells us that there's definitely an interest, and I certainly would like to see the community weigh in on that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. James.
Thank you, Mayor Sweet. Thank you, Karen, for this report. I too am in favor of pursuing option number 3. And just generally speaking about backyard hens in general, I think there certainly would be some issues associated with them. There's absolutely no doubt that things would crop up. But when you compare a couple of hens to, let's say, dogs, for example, you know, dogs bite people and they chase people and they bark all day. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm a dog lover, but these things happen. But we figure out ways to deal with it, right? They're not unacceptable things about dogs, and we disallow them. And I just think chickens are It would be a whole lot less worry than dogs. That's all I have to say for now.
Thank you. Father. Tom. Tom? Unmute. There you go.
Am I on, Dan?
Yep.
I'm in favor of option number 2. And to give you the reason, I realize that these people are very passionate about their hens. However, I'm not in favor of them in the residential area. How would you like it if you had them living beside your place and you're trying to sell your house and the value of your house is all of a sudden devalued because somebody's raising hens beside you in a residential area? It could be in a residential 1 area. We also have the problem of bylaw enforcement. And I'll go on to use a comparison of the recreational fire pits. I think personally, the biggest mistake we ever made was letting recreational fire pits in the built-up area. While it started out as a good idea, it wasn't long before people took advantage of it and started burning everything and anything in them and having fires all times of day and night. We don't have the resources to be able to monitor, to bylaw enforce it. And once again, here we're going to end up, as passionate these 2 people are about raising chickens, and they may do a great job, but somebody will come along, they will try it, the novelty will wear off, and forgive the pun, but we'll be left to put the chickens back in the coop, meaning the town, and it'd be at our expense. I think we have to put the end to it right off the bat and follow the lead of some of the other municipalities around us and go with option 2. I can understand maybe the area has to be cut down as to what you can, where you can have them in the rural area, but I'm in favor of option number 2. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Father, comments? Well, I'll back Tom up on that one. I think absolutely number 2 makes more sense. I cannot see with the size of lots within the town, within the urban area, having a universal, comprehensive situation where we absolutely unilaterally allow chickens in the built-up area. I cannot see that at all. I think option 2 satisfies, in my mind, an opportunity to have these chickens. You can say all you want, but we have to rule for what is best overall for the entire community, not for 2 or 3 people. And I am comfortable changing the bylaw to accommodate these farm animals. And let's be honest with you, they are farm animals in a much smaller type of environment in the rural area, in the unserviced areas. I'm comfortable with that particular situation. So I'm not in favor of a pilot project. I think once you go down that road and it doesn't work out for whatever reason, then what do you do? And Tom has made the point that we have an issue with bylaw enforcement and animal control. I totally agree with him. As you know, just so you understand, we're in a comprehensive zoning bylaw situation where we're reviewing the entire thing. We could, in fact, take this option number 2 and put it into our comprehensive zoning bylaw, which then would be subject to public scrutiny, and reduce it to accommodate the needs in the more rural, unserviced areas. So that would be the one that I would prefer to go with. Further comments? Gary?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't want to talk too much about this. It's getting late, but I'm also in favor of option 2. And correct me if I'm wrong, Karen, but 2 hectares is almost 5 acres.
That's correct, yes.
So I'd be in favor of option 2, but also in favor of making that lot size a little bit smaller, because there aren't too many properties in Petawawa that are 5 or more acres. So something a little bit smaller, but Again, not bringing it into the small residential areas where the backyards are tight together and you can see your neighbor's backyard from your window. That's it.
Thank you, Gary. Matthew?
Yeah, I don't think anybody's asking to have it compressed into quarter-acre lots. I don't think any sort of residential approval needs to incorporate every single household in all of Petawawa. I think we have the ability to control this in the residential neighborhoods and limit both the setbacks, the amount of hens, the size of the cubes. I think that if it can be done in Victoria, British Columbia with a very high urban density, then we can accomplish it here. I think it's ridiculous to think otherwise.
Okay, thank you. Father?
In addition, I do believe our bylaw, our lack of ability to enforce our bylaws is more of an us problem than a their problem.
I'm not sure I know what you mean by that.
I don't think we can hold them necessarily responsible for our lack of ability to control our bylaws.
Oh, I see. Okay, fair enough. Father? So you see the recommendation that council consider the following options. If you want to move this forward, I'll accept a motion to either go for one, I think it's out. I don't think the status quo is where it's at. There's an option here, option 2 or option 3. Is anyone willing to put forward a motion for 2 or 3? Tom?
I'll make the motion. We go with option 2.
Option 2. Do we have a seconder for that? Gary? So there's moved by Tom, seconded by Gary. Any discussion on that? Then I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Those opposed? And I'll vote in favor of the option 2. That gives us 4-3. So we'll move forward and deal with option 2. I think there's an option, there's an opportunity to perhaps reduce it from 5 or down to 5 acres or something like that. I think we can work a little bit, and maybe you can present that coming forward, Karen, if you could, please.
Sure.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor, you had your hand up. Councillor McLean?
Oh, that's fine.
Thank you. Okay, item number 5, ED 03-2020. The
Yes,
Community Improvement Plan.
Council.
Hello, hi, how are you?
I'm good, thank
You've
you.
been sitting patiently in the back there, Christine.
Yes, thank you. The report I'm presenting before council is with regards to the development of a community improvement plan, of which the town of Petawawa does not currently have a council endorsed community improvement plan. A community improvement plan is part of the Planning Act under Section 28. It is a tool in the economic and municipal tool belt that provides for incentives to revitalize a community and to support landowners and tenants in commercial buildings to improve their properties in a defined scope of work within a CIP process. You know, it's come to light through this issue with COVID-19 that those municipalities that had a CIP plan were able to make some modifications and alter some terms of reference under a bylaw approved council to support some of their businesses through very defined terms. Without said document, that's not even possible. So moving forward, I feel it's important that this plan be undertaken by the municipality to support future economic development growth and opportunities for the town of Petawawa and our business community in general. So what I'm asking council is for the approval to move forward with planning as part of budgeting process for 2021, undertaking engaging a consultant and the necessary reserve fund, which will be presented at budget time, to take the CIP in 2021.
Thank you. Questions? Teresa.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Christine. Christine, thanks for that. And you certainly know that as a member of the PBAN and as well as a member of the Accessibility Advisory Committee, both of those committees have already supported that concept and are hoping to be able to send a letter forward should that reach the next stage. Just you were talking about a reserve fund, and I was just wondering, because I'm not clear, is the fund 100% municipally led, or is there any kind of provincial component or anything like that that supports it? I just want to know where the funds have to come from. Thank you.
Christine?
The funds do come from a municipality. It is a budgeted item. So as other municipalities have done, initially when they develop a CIP, there's a larger amount of money that's put into the fund. The applications come in, and depending on the expenditures, initially, there's usually a high influx that tapers out over the course of years as properties get developed and upgraded, or the funds get used for very specific criteria. There is times and opportunities where you can leverage a CIP fund to get some more funds from potential government agencies. It's rare. It's typically on the taxpayers that this fund comes from. And based on contract negotiations, typically it's 18 months to complete a contract between the municipality and a potential tenant or landowner. So we have to reserve those funds for any projects that are approved into subsequent years.
Okay, thank you.
Further comments? Gary.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks, Christine. This is a very interesting concept. I just have a couple of questions for you. I see that it's being offered in some other nearby municipalities. Are there any statistics on how much the other municipalities have spent on this program? And also anything that shows us what's been done, like before and after pictures to these businesses and these towns? Like what kind of effect has this program had on other municipalities in terms of sprucing it up and improving the look of the community? And the third one is this an opportunity for a municipality to have a theme, I guess, is the only way I can think, where you say our businesses, we all want them to look similar in certain ways. Is that one of your goals?
Well, certainly a CIP process, the key component is the community consultation. So that's why you hire and engage a qualified consultant who has some understanding of CIP process through the Planning Act, Section 28 specifically, because they will lead the workshops and the community engagements and the conversations with the businesses that determine the elements within the CIP that council will support. So for example, in the report that I gave you and in the attachment that I provided for you, showing you the designations in some of the local area municipalities, they're not all the same. The priorities of the businesses in Laurentian Valley are not necessarily the same priorities that would be for the businesses in the town of Petawawa. So the consultation piece is very important, and determining the criteria and the factors that would be a part of our CIP are important. When we talk about parameters, we're not so specific as to talk about necessarily detailed aesthetics for uniformity. We're talking about potentially, for example, a sign grant that's available under CIP that allows businesses to obtain signs that conform with our zoning bylaw, or that provide them with greater tools, have access to announce their specials and resolve some issues that we've identified within the community. Tax incentives, accessibility improvements, building facade improvements. These are all things that can be part of a CIP, but it's through the consultation piece that these criteria are determined, and then the maximum amounts of grant allocation and the minimum amount of investment by the property owner or the tenant are determined. So through the whole process, you know, there's no single answer in terms of the value, the assessed value. Having said that, though, it's a matching, typically they're matching grants. So if we say, for example, if it's determined as signage, $2,500 to a maximum grant of $5,000. So we know that the value of the project is 5,000 or more, and our investment potentially could be half of that. So if you think about that over the course of the terms of the grant development, you can multiply. I can tell you, for example, just during COVID-19, Laurentian Valley and the City of Pembroke did opt for a COVID-19 support CIP through bylaw, and they went through the process and they announced that they had opportunities. And while some people did engage on asking for grant supports for COVID relief specifically, there was also an uptake in improvements to their buildings and to their sites. So businesses determined that they wanted to invest in their community and invest in their properties. So again, part of a CIP is having the tools in the tool belt to support economic development, whatever those are, and it's based on the community consultation. So the first part is to do the community consultation, determine where the needs and where the want is from our business community, and then to administer the program. Administering the program on an annual basis, we'll have a better understanding of the volume of applicants. We have to start somewhere. So as part of the 2021 budget, I will ask for a firm amount of money that I've heard from my colleagues was their starting point, and we'll go from there.
Thanks, Christy.
Thank you. Further? Murray.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Christine, for bringing that forward. And yeah, I agree with you. I think we should have it there in our back pocket, and it's an incentive there for our business owners and residential people here to improve some things. But at least we have it in our toolbox in our back pocket for special things we have to look at. Thank you.
Thanks, Murray. Further? Okay, if there's no further discussion, you've got a recommendation of EDO 3-2020. That council supports the development of a community improvement plan for the community for Petawawa and directs staff to undertake this project in accordance with the town's procedural bylaw. That is the recommendation. I need a motion, a mover and a seconder for this. Teresa and Murray, discussion. Call for the vote. All in favor? Opposed of any? It's carried. Thank you. With that, we'll go to the planning and zoning budget report. Anything you want to tell us about that, Karen?
I'm happy to take any questions that council may have.
Okay, but there's nothing you want to point out. Any questions on planning and zoning? Seeing none, we'll receive that. Building?
Still lots
Okay.
of money
Sorry.
left over. Obviously, conferences didn't take place this year, and we've
Sure.
got lots of money still set aside for training, which is good.
That's good. That's good. Economic development, Christine spends crazy.
Yeah.
Anything you want to
I-
tell us about economic development?
Yeah, no, I think
Nothing?
everything's in line.
Anything from council? We'll receive that as information. Anything for general matters, CEO?
Nothing, Mr. Mayor.
Nothing for closed. Need a motion to adjourn. Gary, seconded by Murray. All in favor? We are adjourned. Thank you very much. Pretty long meeting. We did get through it. Thank you. Safe journey. Matthew, are you home now?